Welcome to another episode of the Grace for Breakfast podcast. Today I am here with Teri Brown. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I really enjoyed our conversation. We just talked like last week, and I put her through some of my crazy life, and you were just so graceful and flexible with me. And I ended up, I'll just tell the listeners that I ended up meeting with her in a little booth in the library that I discovered. It's like a recording booth, and it was just quite a little adventure there.
But that's okay because I understand life and adventure, so it worked out just fine.
Yeah, and we originally connected. I think the biggest reason why we connected is because you homeschooled all of your children all the way till college. I mean, till they got to college. And
Right.
that was just such an inspiration to me and so encouraging for me.
Well, I'm glad it was a scary thing doing it when I did it. And so I love to be able to encourage people to, if that's something that you want to do, if that's your passion, I really think that it's a wonderful thing. So I'm glad you're doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm still in the thick of it because my kids are little, but it's really encouraging to see people who have succeeded. So let's tell everybody about you because I haven't even introduced you. So Terry was born in Athens, Greece, as an Air Force brat, even though I would struggle to say brat, quote unquote brat. But Terry Brown now calls the North Carolina coast home. And in 2020, she and her husband, Bruce, rode a tandem bicycle across the United States from Astoria, Oregon to Washington, D.C., successfully raising money for Toys for Tots. Terry's debut novel, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, is a historical fiction set in Ukraine, and her second novel, launching next week. It'll already be launched at the time of this being live, but it's called An Enemy Like Me, which is set in World War II. So we can learn more about her at terrymBrown.com. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
So, Terry, you have a really incredible story, and I almost wish that we would have recorded our last conversation because it was so good already, but you were telling me about just this journey that you've been through that got you to where you are today. Do you want to share with us, I guess, the most like Cliff's Notes version of it? But I mean, we can go a little deeper wherever we want.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, it's like I don't even really know where to start the tale, but I got married. I had 4 beautiful children. Um, my husband and I probably should have never gotten married. We were 2 very, very different individuals that we just never were able to find a good way to make our marriage happy for both of us. So we divorced when our children were they ranged from 12 to 3. So, it was a very difficult time, but nonetheless, we parted friends and decided that we were going to co-parent and do everything we could to allow both our children to have both parents. And so I remarried, and that was probably the biggest mistake of my life was that second marriage. And it's because the man that I chose was emotionally abusive. And looking back now, I probably should have seen the signs, but it's so easy to look back and the hindsight is so perfect because once you know what you're looking for, well then of course you can see it. But if you don't recognize it, and I didn't. And once I started really getting a glimpse of who he was and what he was, I'm really a stubborn person. I didn't want to be divorced twice. The idea was just abhorrent to me. I didn't like being divorced the first time. And to do it twice, that was going to make me a failure, and I don't fail well. So I wasn't going to let this marriage go. So I really worked at it for like 14 years where I, just pushed to make this marriage be a good thing. The problem is when you're living with someone who's emotionally abusive like that, you start to lose who you are. And you don't even recognize that it's happening until one day you wake up and you really don't know who you are anymore. And then you get to the point where you don't think you can leave,
Wow. Yeah.
because you don't believe in yourself, and if you don't believe in yourself, then how are you going to make it? How
And
could
how
you
many
possibly
how many years did you go through
14
that? And
14 years.
so What was the turning point? Like, what caused you said a little bit about self-discovery and about knowing yourself,
Yeah.
but when was the big turning point that you were like, "I need to do something about this?"
So 2 years before I left him, he took all of our money and hid it from me, put it in another account, and it was the 2nd time in our marriage he had done that. And we started with marriage counseling at that point, but I absolutely refused to go forward with marriage counseling until he signed kind of like a contract. And the contract was things that I felt that he was doing that shouldn't be done in a marriage, but the number one thing was the money.
Yeah.
Everything else I said just needs an apology. I want to be able to say to you, "That's something on our contract, and you need to apologize to me." But with the money, I told him if he ever took the money again, ever, that I would leave, no questions,
Yeah, I mean
and I would never come back,
mhm.
because you can't do that accidentally. Like,
No.
you can, in a fit of anger, say something you wish you hadn't said or revert back to an action, but you don't move money from one account to another account in a fit of anger. You have to think about it. It takes time, and somewhere in all of that, you have to say to yourself, "This might not be a good idea," right?
Yeah.
So it took him I bet it took him 3 months of working with the marriage counselor before he would finally sign that contract. And 2 years later, things never did get a whole lot better, but 2 years later, he took the money again. And when he did, I left, and I never went back. And I honestly believe that the reason he took the money was he didn't believe I would leave. And if he took the money and I didn't leave, then he never had anything to worry about ever again. And he didn't know me quite as well as he thought he did because I did leave. And I realized the money was gone. I called my son, and less than 24 hours later, everything I owned was in a storage unit, and I had moved 3 hours away. So
Wow, he underestimated you, that's for
he,
sure.
yeah, he did. And I think that, that's partially my own fault because, for 14 years, he'd been rolling all over me, and I was putting up with it. But I think that he misunderstood. The reason I was putting up with it was because I was fighting for a marriage. And the reason that at the point that he took the money, I was no longer fighting. I
Oh.
didn't want it anymore. And
Mhm.
so he just misunderstood my reasoning behind why I was putting up with all of his stuff. I was putting up with it because I really wanted to make this marriage work.
Wow, yeah, so,
Yeah.
can you take us on the journey from that point? Because it's a very I mean, your son was old enough to get you out, so he's
Right.
older.
Right.
I assume some of your kids are still younger, under your care, needing a lot of your support?
So at the point that I left, my baby was 18, had just
Okay.
turned 8 like, just turned 18.
So she's
Her
still a baby.
Yeah, her birthday was the 1st of April, and this was the end of April. So, I mean,
Wow,
literally,
okay.
she had just turned 18, and at that point, I gave her the option of moving with me or going and staying with her dad, who lived in the next community over from where we lived. So and she chose to stay with him for 2 months, and then she was moving to where I was going to be because she was planning to go to college and had already gotten an apartment with a friend and everything else. So they had that all set up, and it really was a good arrangement because I was living with my son and his wife at the time, which would have been hard to bring someone else to. So, yeah, I went and stayed with him, and I asked him. It was interesting. I called him up on the phone when I realized the money was missing, and I said, "So I was wondering if I needed a place to stay for about 6 weeks. Could it be your house?" And he said, "Yes." I mean, that fast. And I said, "Well, you should probably talk to your wife about it." And he said, "I talked with her about it 2 years ago. We've been waiting for this phone call."
I just got chills. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. So they
So
knew. So you
they
had
knew.
so they were aware about what was going on. Did
Yeah.
you tell them? Were you sharing with them, or did they just make it the
I
assumption on their own?
They figured it out. I mean, it doesn't we were not quiet. He was
Mhm.
never a quiet man. It's not like he hid in a corner and said the kinds of things that he said, but I didn't really let on to my children how distressing it was for me. But, as they get older and I raise them to be very smart, independent thinking individuals, it doesn't really take a rocket scientist to see something ugly when it's sitting there. right?
Yeah.
And so he and his wife had made that decision that if I ever called, the answer was yes.
Oh my goodness, that's so
So,
great. That's so
yeah,
wonderful. Even talking to you the last time we talked and you were just telling me about conversations, even though they can get a little exciting during
right.
holidays and stuff, but that's awesome that you guys still have that unity and that you were able to rely on him.
Yeah.
So what did you do next? How did you because I mean what you're doing right now, you're a rock star. I'm so excited for you. But yeah, so now you're with your son.
Right. So I 2 years so that 2 years before when he had taken the money, I started getting, some counseling for myself because
Oh,
I thought that I was just an angry individual, and what I really was a wounded individual, but the counselor that I was working with was very smart. She never told me to leave him. It's what I needed to do. But had she said that, I would have walked away from her because I wasn't in a space to hear walk away. I wasn't there yet. And so instead, what she did was she said, "How long have you been working on this marriage?" And at the time, it was like 12 years. And she said, "Is it any better?" I said, "Not really." And she said, "Okay, so let's look at all these other areas of your life that you haven't been working on while focusing on your marriage." She said, "I have a lot of clients who have marriages, but are still very happy. And it's because they put their time and energy into the things that make them happy and they coexist with their partner.
yeah.
So why don't we start working on these other things?" And that was family relationships, friend relationships, my work, my spiritual relationships, all of those things. And so I really did. I started working on those. So while still with him, I really began working on my business, which was writing for small businesses, where I was just writing like website content
Yeah,
and,
like copywriting and
copyright
marketing.
type stuff.
Mhm.
And I had built the business up enough that it was a nice little second income for our family. And it was perfectly sufficient for one woman to live in an apartment building somewhere.
And he
And
wasn't able to touch that.
no, he couldn't
Oh,
touch
thank
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
wow.
and so when I moved out and moved in with my son, immediately I had to do things like set up bank accounts and get a credit card in my own name and, all of those things, and I did all of that and, found an apartment and moved myself into the apartment, and I stayed with them 6 weeks just like I said I would. I knew how long it was gonna take. I knew that I would get there and I would have to set up all the banking stuff, and that by the time you get that done and you add a few more weeks to, find a place and get into the place. And yeah, I moved in and continued doing my, um, work with the small businesses and thought that I was just going to live that way the rest of my life, that I would be alone and I would be lonely and that
Mm.
it was okay because I wasn't ever getting married again and I wasn't ever going to have a relationship again. I wasn't ever going to let myself get hurt that way again. And I would just focus on my children and my grandchildren and just find a way to be happy.
Ooh, so
Then,
how did you find your joy? I'm not even gonna give it away. I know the ending, but
so you know what's interesting? This is going to make everybody laugh. Um, so that was in April that I left, and now Christmas is coming up. So it's like the 1st of December, and I am experiencing my first empty nest single Christmas. And it was horrible. Okay. I was so used to doing, so I homeschooled, my kids were with me, and we
Mhm.
did things for Christmas. Every day was something. We would make Christmas cards and we would cut snowflakes out. My kids at 18 were cutting out snowflakes and hanging them from the ceiling with me. And I loved going to the parades I mean, there was something every day. Well, now I'm by myself. And cutting out snowflakes by yourself is not the same as cutting them out with your children as you laugh and talk and
Yeah.
reminisce. And so
Mhm.
I was so lonely. And so, like, I almost decided I wasn't doing Christmas, which is crazy because I'm like Mrs. Claus, like
Yeah.
I love everything.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, what can I do about this? Like, I am so lonely. And I thought, I wonder about these dating websites. So I looked and I found a Christian website, and everyone that I saw, so they kind of let you like preview it, and they were all people who lived far away from me. Like the closest one was 4 or 500 miles. And I thought, perfect. because I don't really want a relationship. What I'd like is some flirty conversations so
Ah,
that I don't feel so lonely,
yeah,
right?
that's true. Yeah.
So they had one of these, buy 1 month, get 3 months free kind of thing, and I went ahead and signed up for it, and I had some flirty conversations, and then Christmas came and went, and I never even got on it again. I had no intention. I wasn't interested, right? This
Hmm.
was just to get me through the holidays. February, the very 1st of February comes around, and I get a notice, and it was from somebody who lived 42 miles from me. And I
Not
thought,
bad.
"Oh my gosh, no," and it was like, but I'm the kind of person that I can't I should have ignored it, right? Because I wasn't interested. Except what he said was, "Hi, my name's Bruce. Here's my phone number. Can I have yours?"
Oh,
I
he
thought that
just
was the
got right to it.
well, and I thought, "You've got to be kidding." So I couldn't let that go. So I wrote back and I said, "No, you can't have my phone number. Number 1, I have no idea who you are. You could be anybody. You could live anywhere. This could all be a lie. I don't even know that you're real." And the whole reason that women join dating sites like this is so that we don't give out our personal information to some
It's true.
stranger, right? So
Yeah.
I had to school him and let him know. He writes back and says, "Well, that's very prudent of you." And I'm thinking, "Who is
W-
this?" Right?
Yeah.
So he says, "I see that you're in Wilmington," because it does give them, it doesn't say where you are, but it, gives
Like
them
your
just
area.
an
Hmm.
area. And he said, "I would love to come up and go to church with you on Sunday."
Oh my,
And I'm
this
thinking,
guy.
yeah. And I'm thinking, no way, because can you imagine? Everyone knows that I'm newly separated. So
Hmm.
I'm going to bring some man to church and be the talk of all the women. Like, there's no way I am going to let that happen. So I told him, no, I wasn't, no, not interested at all. Then he said, "Well, would you like to come up and go to church with me?" Nope, same problem, different
He
church. Like, I'm not
right down
doing
to
it.
business.
Yes. So I called a friend of mine who lived in the area, and I thought maybe she had heard of him. And so I just asked her, and she said, "No, why?" Well, I didn't have a cover story. So I just told her the truth. Well, it turns out she's Molly Matchmaker, and she came up with this elaborate plan where I did meet him at a church, but not either one of ours. She came with me. She pretty much insisted afterwards, after we had met him, and I thought, bad first impression. He was so stiff and formal, and I thought, "Oh my gosh, we're never going to be compatible."
Yeah,
I
because you are
honestly
so the opposite of stiff.
well, and I thought that he was like almost like funeral director material, like he was
Oh my
all
gosh.
just, and I thought, "Oh, I like not interested." Well, he says to me as we're leaving, "Can I have your phone number now that you know I'm real?" And I said, "I'll text it to you." But I had no intention of texting it to him because I'm not interested, right?
Mhm, but it's a good way to kinda delay it and put it in
Right,
your
right, like, I'll text it to you. Well, the whole way home, my friend Miley just went on and on and on about, "Yes, you have to at least give him 2 real dates because going to church isn't a date," and I thought he was cute, and I said, "Well, you date him," I mean, it was that kind of thing.
Oh my
And
goodness.
eventually, I finally sent my phone number to him. He pulled his truck over and texted me back immediately and asked me on a date for Thursday night. And
He
so
was
we
just
went
like,
out.
"You know what? I'm not here to play games."
Yeah. So we went out to eat, and I did enjoy his company. He was not nearly so stiff. I think he was just nervous.
Mhm.
And he's also military, and so he has a little more of
Oh,
a
so there's
formal
yeah.
stance, and his
Mhm.
even his head was shiny, like everything he was just shiny, and I don't know. But the second time I met him, he was wearing jeans and he showed up in a red pickup truck. I mean, it was like a whole different vibe.
Okay.
Um, but even then, I liked him, but I had no intention of getting involved, and I kept
Yeah.
telling him, "I need you to leave now while you're a half gallon of chocolate ice cream and a good cry." Like, I can't let myself get attached because you're gonna leave and you're gonna hurt me, and I can't be hurt again. And he
Mhm.
kept saying, "I'm not going anywhere unless you tell me, leave and don't come back." Well, I didn't wanna tell him that. I wanted him to do it.
Well,
Do you know what I'm
yeah, how are you
saying?
gonna
Like, yeah, how do you tell someone that? So, Yeah, I ended up yeah, I don't know. It was like several months later and I knew that we were gonna get married, and we did, and while dating, he said to me that he always wanted to ride across the United States on a bicycle. And I had been really wanting some big adventure to prove that I still had a little life left in me because I'd felt been really battled down for 14 years and I didn't really believe in me anymore. And I assumed no one else believed in me either. And I felt like I needed to prove to the world that I still had something. So I had contemplated like walking the Appalachian Trail or doing something like big and bold. And when he said that, it was like, that would be big and bold. So I asked him, "Is that something that you plan to think about until the day you die, or are you actually going to do it?" And he said, "No, I really want to do it." And I said, "Count me in." So he and I started, while dating, we started riding around on a tandem bicycle, getting me. I had not been on a bicycle in 40 years.
Oh my goodness. So,
So, yeah,
okay.
so this isn't like Terry's an athletic woman and has been doing this. No, Terry is not an athletic woman. I am a desk jockey.
Oh my
Like
gosh. I
this
know.
is where
Us
I,
that are like typing away. This
yeah,
we
you
get a
know,
finger workout.
yeah, I get a finger workout, and for me, like I love being outdoors, but it's more like strolling along the beach, picking up shells,
Yeah, just
swimming
sauntering.
a few laps in the
Mhm.
pool. Like I'm not marathon and triathlon and I don't go hang gliding and I don't jump out of planes. Like I'm pretty standard normal. Like to me
Yeah.
a hike in the woods is on a well beaten trail and you're not going to get poison ivy. Like it's just very calm. So this was huge for me. And we were supposed to leave in May of 2020, but of course, COVID had everything closed. And we didn't think we were going to get to go. And it was very disappointing. And then things started opening back up little by little. And we got started at the end of June of 2020. And we rode 3,102 miles.
Wow! I'm clapping. I don't wanna clap loud, it might hurt the that's incredible. I've done a trip like that on in a truck, but oh my goodness.
So, but it's interesting. I did that trip partially because I thought that I wanted to prove to other people that I still had some worth.
Mhm.
And we raised money for Toys for Tots, which was a really good, a good,
Great cause.
well, and it's a good motivator on the days
Yeah, I was
that you
gonna
want
say
to quit,
motivator.
right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
But what I really learned was that that trip was for me because I
Mhm.
needed to learn about me and I needed to recognize for myself that I had worth and that I had the ability to do things, the hard things. And
Yeah.
when we got done with that trip, that's what I realized is I could do absolutely anything I set my mind to.
Wow, and I mean, you had a whole lot of time to reflect,
Yes. Yes. Because
right?
you're crossing on a tandem bicycle that's fully loaded. So we had a trailer with all of our camping gear, and I mean, we
Wow.
looked like a small circus going across. And you're only going 10 miles an hour. I mean, it's not like you're
Yeah.
speeding across the United States. And so at
Mhm.
10 miles an hour going across the United States, 3 months we were on the road, you you do think a lot
Yeah.
and reflect. And you also come to understand it was not an easy trip. There were definitely times where I was on the side of the road crying, thinking there was no way I could go on. Like, this is beyond my abilities. And then I would somehow find the strength to go on anyway.
And
And
how was Bruce during that? Was he like a coach or was he
so the
struggling
first
with you and crying with you?
no, Bruce is a 25-year Marine.
Okay, so
He
he
can
was
do
coaching.
anything. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the coach. The first time I cried, he really tried the whole, like, pat me, and it was like, I did the, "Don't touch me,"
Yeah.
so I'm sobbing. He learned that what he needed to do was let me have my cry
Mhm.
because I'm an emotional person.
Yeah.
And if I can get my emotions under control, then I can get my logical brain back in gear. But if the
Yeah.
emotions are too big, I can't I can't bring logic into the picture. So I
No,
have to
you just have to release them.
yes.
Yeah, that's
So
how I am.
so I'm a stand on the side of the road and cry kind of person. Then I take a deep breath, put my leg over the bicycle and say, "Come
Yep,
on,
and you're
let's
like, "All
go.
right, let's
Let's
go."
go." Yeah, but it's like I need that sobbing part.
Mhm.
But in all of that, you learn so much about who you are and what you're capable of. So I got back from that trip and I thought, I want to be an author. I have a manuscript ready to go that I have been terrified to let anyone see. And 6 months later, I had a publisher, and now I have my second book coming out.
Oh my goodness. So, okay, and so you had when did you write this manuscript? Was this something that you'd been working on through the years or
So
you
I
had
wrote
just
it after I met Bruce,
okay.
but before we got married. And he
Had
had
you told anybody about it or
Oh, like, my kids knew, and
okay.
he knew. There were a few people that knew, but, like, it wasn't going anywhere because I didn't believe in it. I
Yeah,
didn't
and now it's like an award-winning book, isn't
Yes,
it?
yes.
How many
Um,
awards? Like 8
it's
awards?
gotten 8 so far. Yeah, I'm, like, just blown away by it. I'm blown
You're my
away.
hero.
Thanks. But, yeah, so I was afraid. If you think about it, when you write a book and you write characters, these characters, they're mine. I made them up. They came from my head. So if you don't like them, it's almost like saying you don't like me. And it's not, but there's that
Yeah,
connection
that's
that
how
you have,
attached you are. Yeah.
right? If you're not in a safe space, you can't allow someone to not like something that you've created. And for all those years that I was living in the abusive relationship, there was no safe space. And
No.
then even when I left it, I wasn't ready to be rejected. Like I couldn't yet. It would have hurt me too much.
Yeah.
So instead of being hurt, you just don't let anyone see it. That's the way you
Mhm.
handle it, right?
Yeah, you
Is you
protect
can't
yourself.
right, you can't be hurt if no one sees any of the soft stuff. If you
Hmm.
don't ever show your underside, they can't kick it. And so you just keep all of that to yourself. But I came back from that trip and I thought, mm-mm, it's a good book and it needs to get out there. And I got it out there, and someone did believe it was a good book. And ended up with a wonderful editor who really helped me see where some of the weaker spots in the manuscript were and who helped me really strengthen those portions. And then it came out, and like you said, now it's winning awards. So, yeah,
Oh my goodness. I'm just okay, so now that you're in this amazing place, like I feel like you're in a blissful place of life. You're getting ready to launch your second book.
right, right.
You are married to this incredible man.
Yeah.
How does it feel now? Like, how are you maintaining this? Or do you ever go back to a certain place and say, "Oh my gosh, this is too good to be true," or
Oh, I do the too good to be true. I think that there's always a little part of my brain that says, When is that going to end?" But I don't know that we talked about it. Did you know that my husband has brain cancer?
No, you didn't
We f
know.
Yeah, we found out in June.
Oh my
So, yeah, so it's like we don't know what the ending of that story will
yeah.
be, and so that's been really hard. We found out in June, he had his surgery in July. They got the entire tumor, but
Mhm.
now he had to do chemo and radiation, and now he's just doing chemo only. Um, and for the first couple of months, I was a very angry. I was angry. I was angry at God. I was angry at fate. I was
Mhm.
angry at, to me it was like, who thought this up?
Yeah.
It took me 2 marriages that weren't good to find the one that is so perfect. I finally have found my person. I
Mhm.
finally found my space in life. I finally feel good and strong and capable, and you're going to take him from me? And it was a very I still am not completely sure where I stand with all of
Yeah.
those.
Mhm.
However, Bruce is a very strong individual. He believes very firmly that he's going to get the miracle.
Mhm.
He's doing really well through all of this. We just got a clean MRI in
Wow.
2
Yeah.
weeks ago, so that's really good news.
Yeah.
Um, we get MRIs every 8 weeks, but this is another clean one, and So we've made the decision that we are going to live life to the fullest until we're told that there's just no way to live life to the fullest.
That's
Because
beautiful.
the
Mm.
truth is, all of us have a ticking time clock over our head.
Mhm.
We just were given a glimpse of it. And it makes you kind of really stop and say, what's important? And am I wasting my time on things that are not important? And the answer is, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we do that's not important. And if it's stuff that you can really get rid of, get rid of it. Like, go back to what's important, what matters the most. I had someone say to me the other day, "How do you do it all?"
Yeah, I was gonna ask you how are you working through it all day to
Well,
day?
so if you could see, like, what you see right now, it looks like I'm sitting in this nice, calm
Yeah, it's so
office,
bright and
right?
colorful, I
Uh-huh.
love it.
Yeah,
I love the painting behind you.
to my left is a stack, 2, 3, 4 stacks of stuff, all kind of falling into pieces. I have a wastebasket up under here that I've forgotten to take out the last 3 times I've gone out to the garbage. There's a stack over here on the floor that needs to be filed that I haven't got to yet, and then oh wait, 2 stacks that need to be filed. Um, and I have 2 loads of laundry that I washed yesterday but have yet to fold, and the 3rd load that I can't remember if I put in the dryer, and that's probably a little note I need to make to myself right now to check, because if not, I may need to wash it again because
Uh-huh.
who knows how long, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm not doing it all.
Mm,
But it's okay because I'm doing the things that are important and the things that make me happy. I'm spending time with my husband and I'm writing my book, and I've got another book that I'm writing right now, and I've got these books that I'm putting out there, and those are the things that make me happy, and my children and my grandchildren. And if you don't fall into one of those categories, sorry.
it's not necessary. So how do you keep yourself creative during hard times?
So people ask me about writer's block, and this is what I think about writer's block is writer's block is your body telling you that you don't have enough bandwidth for creativity. So you have to figure out why. What is it that's blocking you? When I first found out that Bruce had cancer, I could not write. There was no writing. And of course, there was no writing. My mind was whirling with
Mhm,
cancer, 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 and more cancer.
mhm,
Looking up the cancer, realizing how bad it was, sobbing, unable to think. It was all consuming.
mhm.
And that's okay. You can't be creative at that point. But we got to a space where we had a doctor say, you've got all the good things going for you. We found it early. We got the whole tumor. You've responded well to the radiation. Your MRIs are looking good. And Bruce said, well, what does that mean for my prognosis? And she said, no one can tell you that. But here's what I can tell you. You have everything going for you. For the kind of people who can beat this, you have all of those qualities. So why don't you go live your life and let us deal with the cancer?
Ooh, what an incredible doctor.
And from that point on, I've been able to write because I've allowed myself to believe that A, he has the chance of making it, and B, even if he doesn't, why would we live the last of whatever we might have together crying? So
Mhm.
instead, we're living. And
Yeah,
when he feels good, we go and do great things. And when he doesn't feel good, I sit with him and we chat or we watch a television show. And if he really doesn't feel good, I crawl up into bed with him and hold him and we both take a nap. I mean, that's just what we
it's
do.
so I feel like in the last 10 minutes, you've covered, like, the ABCs of grace, and then now in, like, the last 5, you've covered surrender, just surrender, which is something even as women, it's so hard for us to just not just let go, but I say the word surrender because it's truly, like, just like, I give up. I give it all up, you know?
And I'm not good at it.
Who is?
This is not like my standard operating mode is take charge, make a list, follow the list, mark off the list, move on to the next list. I mean,
I mean,
that's
it's
who I
clear you're a
am.
doer. You're quite a doer.
But there are times where you have to look and say, doing is not going to happen today. Today is not a doing day. Yesterday was not a doing day. He did not have a good day yesterday. And so everything that was on my to-do list, I didn't do because I couldn't do
Mm,
it. It's not that I
yeah.
couldn't do it. I chose not
You
to do
chose
it
not to do it.
because he needed me to be there with him. Today, he's having a really good day. So we're doing life.
Yeah.
And some of that life is together and some of that life is apart, just like it was before he got sick. You know, when he used to go into the garage and spend hours working on his bicycles or doing his puttering, whatever he does out there. And I'm in my office and I'm doing what I do in my office. And we come together at different points of the day and we swap stories and that's good. That's the way it's supposed to be,
Yeah.
you know? So
How
yeah,
many years have you guys been together now?
it'll be 4 at the end of March.
Wow.
So,
Oh,
4 years of marriage, 5
yeah.
years that I've known him. So
Okay.
we dated for a year.
Okay. Ah, you guys are so sweet. I wish I could just meet you guys in person.
Come on down.
Oh, I love North Carolina. I've never been, but it's just one of those places a lot of people go or like move to, and it's just like the place, you know?
Well, the coast of North Carolina is absolutely beautiful, and truly, if you ever wanna come visit, we have a lovely home. Come and stay. We're about 8 minutes from the beach, and I can take you to all the fab places, so
Have you ever thought about doing writers retreats? I know that you have a podcast that you
right,
co-host, but have you
right.
thought about like writing retreats or teaching or because
So
you're good?
I have talked about it, and it's something that maybe I will do. We've got to get Bruce through the chemo aspect
Mhm.
because having people in and out right now is just totally not a thing. It
Yeah.
just can't happen
It's
right
not the
now.
season for it, yeah.
No, no, we're not there. But I absolutely love talking with new writers, especially
Mhm.
those that I feel have that hesitant, I'm not sure that I'm capable or I don't know if, and I
Yeah.
know that feeling. I know it because I still experience it. Even though I'm doing it's working. There's still that fear. Like when I put my second book out, so you get it out to your reviewers first. And
Mhm.
so it's out to reviewers before the public is able to buy the book. And I got my first review and I knew it was there. It was sitting in my email and I was afraid to read it because there's that horrible fear that I can only write one book. I wrote the first one, Sunflowers Beneath the Snow, and now this second one, An Enemy Like Me. What if it's no good? What if they hate it? And there's that just almost sick, and I finally got up the guts and I read it, and it was a wonderful review, and I just cried and cried and cried. I'm not a one-hit wonder. You know? And so I know the feeling, it doesn't just go away. Like, I have to fight it back. I have to fight it back every day.
Mhm.
No, you are a good, strong woman who is a good writer, who has things to say, and like I have to remind myself who I am. And some of that comes from living 14 years in an abusive relationship, and some of that comes from being a woman, and
Mhm.
some of that comes from just being me. And all the times that you've been beat down over your life from the time that, your kindergarten teacher didn't like the way you colored your picture all the way up to whenever it accumulates and it becomes part of what you believe about yourself. And
Mhm.
that journey that I took on the bicycle helped me erase a lot of that, or at least put it into packages that make sense.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
put it
tell
into the
people,
right perspective.
yeah, I tell people I've wrapped it up and I've put it in boxes and I've got it stacked in, the closet over there. And I can actually go and kind of like open up the box now and look inside
Mhm.
and see it for what it is. And then I can put it back and wrap the bow back on it and stick it away. And it doesn't pop up as much as it used to
Yeah.
because I can look at it and I can
Yeah.
see it for what it was.
Mhm.
And
I've
it
never
doesn't,
heard that analogy before, but it's so perfect. It's like
well,
a really good analogy for healing.
it is because the truth is that you don't ever get rid of it.
No, you don't
Your
forget.
no, your
Mhm.
past is there. It's can you look at your past and have it not rule you in your future? Can you do that? And you can't until you have found a way to see it for what it is, to recognize your role in it, whatever that was, to forgive yourself for whatever role that was. Like, it was a terrible decision to have married him, and it was a
Mhm.
terrible decision to have stayed 14 years. However, at the time, it was the best decision I could make. If I could have made a better decision, I would have done that. So I've just given myself the grace for what it is. I did the best I could in the circumstances that I was in with the knowledge that I have. And when you can do that, and then you can look at that, whatever it is, that ugly in your life, whatever it is, and say, I did the best I could with what I was given at the time, and then you can put it away, then you can move forward, and it doesn't have to haunt you anymore. I think that's what real healing is that just that ability for it to not let it haunt you
Mhm.
day in and day out, or
Yeah.
shape what your next steps are.
Yeah.
Because when I
Mhm.
first married or first met Bruce, it was still very much affecting everything I did. I was telling him to go away because I didn't want to be hurt again, because I was sure I'd be hurt again, and that was all leftover stuff
Yeah.
from someone else that I was putting onto him, which was really unfair to him. But, you know,
So, are you telling us that we need to all go on a cross
I
country bike trip?
I know you're gonna laugh at this, but so, do you need to ride cross country? No, but I think that every person needs to do something well outside of their comfort zone and kind of help themselves see what they're really made of.
Yeah.
So, is it a ride across the United States? It might be. It might even be something as simple as, I'm going to quit this job I hate, and
Mhm.
I'm gonna go do something else. Or, I've always wanted to homeschool my kids, but I've been afraid to. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna start
Mhm.
that. Or whatever that thing is that in your life you say, "If I were braver,"
Mhm.
you
Yeah, for
know?
me, it was moving to Puerto Rico.
So,
That's what it was, because when my husband and I got married, we moved to Colorado. I grew up
mhm,
in Connecticut. I'm back in Connecticut. I'm not saying
mhm,
it publicly, but I don't think Colorado was the boldest move. It was the move to Puerto Rico. That was the one that really just put me in a place of, I guess the only word I have right now is like isolation, but I was just so set to myself to survive on my own. I mean, with my husband,
right.
that it really, I don't know, ripped me open. I don't have the words right now for it, but it brought the most healing in my life, I would say.
Exactly. Exactly, and I think that every person needs an experience like that. Once they get a little older, I don't think it would
Mhm.
help much at 16. You
No.
haven't lived enough life,
Yeah.
But once you've had some life experience, I think that getting outside of that comfort zone and checking to see, like, what are you really capable of, and who are you? Like when it's tough and you're being
Mhm.
squeezed, what is it that's coming out, and do you like it? And if the answer is no, then you've got a chance to change it. And if the answer is, wow, I'm surprised by what I see, then you've got a chance to embrace it.
Mhm.
This is who I am. And for me, it was, look at who I am. I just rode across the country on a tandem bicycle. Me. And if I can do that, I can do anything I set my mind to. So now it's not a question of can I do it? It's a question of, do I want to?
Or what are you gonna do
What
next?
am I going to do next?
Because
Yeah.
you're prolific. Are you, like, trying to be the next Stephen King?
Oh, that would be great. I
Could you
wouldn't mind
imagine?
that. I
Have you
wouldn't.
read his memoir?
No,
Oh my god.
I read James Patterson's,
Oh, okay. Was it
which was
good?
a good one. Yeah,
Okay.
I was really surprised by that one. It was really good, but I haven't read Stephen King's. I'll have to put that on my
I just
list.
finished his. It was really funny. It was really funny to get to know him. And I just was like, wow, at his routine and how he's very prolific. He's very dedicated to his work.
Well, so is James Patterson. He writes a certain number of hours
And he's
every
pretty
day.
prolific too. Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, he's written
yes.
tons of books.
And I'm like, "You know what? I don't write every day, so I'm not quite where they are, or maybe that's never gonna be my style." And I've just
Yeah.
decided that, you know, I've kinda given up trying to compare myself to other people because
Mhm.
I don't ever measure up. And I don't measure up, but it's in my own mind,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
I am who I am, and I'm writing the books that I'm writing, and I'm doing me. And if me doesn't look like Stephen King or me doesn't look like James Patterson, well, then okay.
Yeah, and please don't look like them because I really think that you're awesome all on
Thanks.
your own. So tell us about your new book and where we can get it.
Okay, so the new book is An Enemy Like Me, and it's a World War II historical fiction. Um, but it is a lot, it's very different from a lot of the books out there because it looks at the war from the point of view of a first generation German American. And he's living in the United States, and the war kind of comes knocking at his door. He's married and he has a child, and he makes the decision that he's going to fight in the war, but he thinks he's going to fight the Japanese. And the Japanese were someone that he could get behind as an enemy because they were very different from him. They ate
Mhm.
different, they lived different, they talked different, they looked different, everything was different. And he ended up in Germany. And he recognizes that he's more like the enemy than he is different.
Oh,
And so
so are
we
you just talking about his inner struggle? Like
so
what's
we see it from his point of view, from
Ooh.
his wife's point of view, and then we also see it from the point of view of his 4-year-old son, both as a 4-year-old and as an adult looking back.
Oh my goodness, that must have been Ooh, I wanna read that.
It's An Enemy Like Me. Yeah.
Wow, and where can we find it? Is it well, where's it gonna be out at the time this is
Okay,
published?
so
It'll be out.
it's on my website. So if you're in the United States, you can order it from my website. And then it's pretty much anywhere books are sold. So you can get on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, you name it, you can find it there. But yeah, if you order it from my website, I will sign it so you can get a signed copy. And
Okay.
yeah.
And where else can we find you? What else are you working on right now?
Okay, so I am working on my third novel is also a historical fiction, and it is going to be about a woman in the 1890s who lives in the North Carolina mountains, and she's a healer. And so I get to bring in a lot of North Carolina mountain folklore and some Cherokee Indian folklore, and their customs. And we get to talk a lot about healing medicines and herbs and whatnot and what it
Ooh,
takes
it's
at
like
that
up
period
my
of
alley.
time. Yeah.
Ooh, I love that. I'm excited for that
So,
one.
and it has no name yet because I'm terrible at coming up with names. So, who knows? Who knows when it'll have a name? Sunflowers Beneath the Snow did not have a name until like, oh, well, they had accepted the book. I had done all of the edits, and then it was still a month of us going back and forth with me trying to come up with
Oh
a
my
name.
goodness.
I hated everything they suggested. They hated
Mhm.
everything I suggested. It was just, I thought it was going to go out as Unnamed by Teri M. Brown, or You Name It Yourself by Teri M. Brown.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah. Yeah. But in terms of like keeping up with me, if you go to my website, you can follow all of my social media. I've got all the little links there. You can get on my newsletter. I try to send out 2 newsletters a month, and one of them is very newsy about me and what's going on, and the other one is usually a book recommendation of something that I've read recently that I enjoyed. Um, I've got a contact page. Feel free to reach out. I love to talk to anybody about books and writing and life and just in general. So yeah, reach out.
And you are so welcoming, and I will definitely be keeping in touch with you.
Super. I'm so excited about that. I am so glad that we connected.
Yeah, me too. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
for having me.